Good afternoon. I'm Ward 1 Councilmember Brianne Nadeau, the Chair of the Committee on Public Works and Operations. Today is Tuesday, June 10th, 2025, and I'm calling to order this meeting of the committee in room 412 of the John Wilson Building, as well as over the Zoom platform. The time is 12:15 p.m. The topic of today's hearing is the mayor's proposed fiscal year 2026 budget for the Office of Human Rights and two offices previously under the mayor's Office of Community Affairs, the mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs, and the mayor's Office of Veterans Affairs. The Office of LGBTQA advocates for programs and policies that benefit LGBTQ+ residents and connect LGBTQ+ residents with the city services they may need. The office provides grants to community-based organizations who serve at-risk LGBTQ+ populations, such as LGBTQ youth experiencing homelessness. The office empowers LGBTQ+ community leaders and removes barriers for LGBTQ+ business owners. The office also hosts events that promote and bring together the LGBTQ+ community of the district, including World Pride 2025 that was hosted here in the District of Columbia this past weekend. I'd like to note that the government witness portion of the LGBTQ Affairs budget hearing has been moved to this Friday, June 13th, 2025 at 9 a.m. in room 123 of the John A. Wilson Building and virtually via Zoom. We will still hear today from public witnesses. The Office of Veterans Affairs provides outreach, advocacy, and assistance to DC's 30,000 veterans and their families. Through its district veteran service officers, the office assists veterans and their families with federal VA claims and benefits. The office also develops commemorative events that recognize the military service and sacrifice of district veterans. The mayor's proposed FY26 budget includes a structural change for the mayor's Office of Community Affairs and its related offices. Funding and programs previously under MOVA have been moved to three different clusters within the Executive Office of the Mayor: Community Partnerships, Community Relations, and Cultural Affairs. The Mayor's Office on Veterans Affairs, which used to have its own budget chapter, has now been fully moved into the Mayor's Office of Community Partnerships, along with its funding and staff. The LGBTQ Affairs Office has been transferred to the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs. This move also reduces their staff by one full-time person from 6 to 5, with that position moving to serve DC. Today, I'll review how these changes might affect the offices, get updates on their current programs, and examine any other budget changes. My goal is to make sure these offices continue to receive the funding they need to effectively serve all communities across DC. Also on today's agenda is the Office of Human Rights. The Office of Human Rights is charged with providing a legal process to those who believe they've been discriminated against. The agency's mission is to secure an end to unlawful discrimination in employment, housing, public accommodations, and educational institutions for any reason other than that of individual merit. It enforces several important laws, the oldest and most central of which is the Human Rights Act of 1977. The office's current director is Kenneth Saunders. The largest segment of the agency is the Enforcement Division, which handles intake, mediation, and investigation of complaints alleging unlawful discrimination. This division handles complaints of discrimination in housing, employment, public accommodations, and education based on over 20 protected characteristics under the DCHRA, complaints under certain DC civil rights laws, and complaints under federal laws. The Enforcement Division leadership also oversees a specialized legislative and compliance section that helps with matters such as developing government equal employment opportunity training materials. Several small but important divisions support the functions of the office. These include the Operations Division, which provides human resources and other administrative services, the Legal Division or Office of the General Counsel, and the Communications and Community Engagement Division, which, among other responsibilities, conducts awareness campaigns regarding human rights protections. In the year of serious budget constraints, the mayor's budget proposed an 8.8% reduction for Office of Human Rights, bringing the operating budget of the agency to $9,645,000. Today, we will discuss the reductions to the agency because they affect programs and employees which are critical to holding violators of the Human Rights Act accountable and making sure district residents are protected under the law. I look forward to hearing from our public and government witnesses today to learn more about these proposed budgets. Just some logistics for today. So, in addition to being in person and on Zoom, the hearing is being live broadcast at brianneknadeau.com/live. Witnesses testifying on behalf of an organization will have 5 minutes to provide oral testimony, and all other witnesses will have 3. We have several witnesses today who will be utilizing translation services. Because the translation today is going to be sequential instead of simultaneous, those witnesses will have double the time. In order to ensure we hear from all members of the public, I ask that all witnesses stick to their allotted time. When it's your turn, I will call your name. If you are in the room, please come to the table at that time. If you are in the Zoom, please accept the invitation to be promoted. We'll begin with our first panel. Jamie Mondragon, Kiara Catalaya Hernandez, and Valeria Hernandez. Come sit here. Is that all that showed up? So you have it in writing, so you don't need her to take breaks. Perfect. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you for understanding the way that we'll be accommodating today. And when you're ready, just push the button and then.
Hola, buenos días, mi nombre es Valeria Hernández. Llegué a ese país hace muchos años por primera vez a Casa Rubí cuando me enteré que había otros programas de mujeres latinas. Después del cierre de Casa Rubí encontré refugio en Chan. Durante mucho tiempo quedé sin hogar, voy a improvisar, y pues me enfoqué a andar en buscar en otros refugios, pero por el problema de que yo no podía, había mucha como discriminación porque éramos latinos y pues los miraban de menos, con la comida no era muy estable, los horarios y las reglas eran como un problema, no tanto para ellos, los dejaban afuera por durmiendo por 3 días y no sé. Y ahora de que estuve en la última refugio que estuve, ahora que soy cero positiva, estuve en el último refugio, me trataron mal porque decían que yo les podía contagiar por lo que yo tengo ahora mismo y pues me siento mal porque en ninguna vivienda o refugio puedo estar porque me miran de menos, porque obligatoriamente tengo que decir mi enfermedad que yo tengo y pues ahora no sé cómo explicar eso y pues, ay, no sé, no sé.
Just to give her a break, I'll translate a bit. But she said, good evening. My name is Valeria Hernandez. She came to this country years ago and first lived at Casa Ruby, where she heard there was a program designed for that was inclusive towards trans women who are Latina. After the closing of Casa Ruby, she had entered into emergency shelter at Shine, which is one of DC's only youth emergency shelter for the queer community. And she wasn't there for a long time. She didn't feel like the environment was welcoming. And she had a tough time with the food and the hours because she worked at night. And she ultimately felt like this was not a place for her community, even though it was designed to be. She also felt like there was barriers due to her language. And then upon aging out of the youth system, she entered into the adult LGBT shelter, Living Life Alternatives. When she found out that she was HIV positive, she felt that there was a shift in people stigmatizing her, claiming that she could spread it to other residents there. So even in the places designed to be safe for her, she'd never felt welcomed. I'm going to see if she wants to continue. ¿Quieres continuar? ¿Quieres pausar?
Lo último. Hace poco intenté encontrar refugio para eh, habilitar mi salud. Puede ser muy duro, pero las personas en hogar de extranjero, así como mi persona con cero positivo, este, esto, ah, es difícil encontrar trabajo porque en muchos trabajos piden como, por ejemplo, como documentos de médicos y no podemos, no, así como yo no puedo este, esforzarme mucho a eso porque hay un obstáculo que me piden mi enfermedad y otra por la discriminación de las personas porque solo porque soy cero positivo me critican o hablan mal de mí y en las organizaciones donde yo perdón, en los refugios que yo he estado me han tratado mal por mi enfermedad.
She also recently tried to find housing specific for individuals who are positive, where she encountered more barriers as well as due to language, and then as well in trying to find employment. She was highlighting how difficult it is to find employment as a trans woman. Now they require a lot of documentation that often is hard to present. Si quieres seguir, estás bien así.
Este,
Okay. And she said she's good there. She'll just pause there.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Really appreciate it. And I appreciate you highlighting the need for these services here in the District of Columbia. Thank you. Our next panel will be utilizing French language translation through our interpreter who was on the Zoom, Mr. Modi. Once I get them seated, if you want to give them instruction on how you'd like them to take breaks, et cetera.
Yes.
Okay. So our next panel is Ruby Dilao and Nikki Kuyate. Mr. Modi, if there's anything you want to say.
Bonjour.
Oui, bonjour.
Voilà, très bien. Je suis l'interprète et donc je vais interpréter consécutivement. C'est-à-dire, vous allez me donner deux phrases à la fois
OK,
et vous prenez une pause et je traduis et après vous continuez si vous le voulez.
il n'y a pas de problème.
D'accord.
On peut commencer?
Can we start?
Yes.
OK.
Oui.
Mon nom, c'est Niki Kouyaté. Je viens de la Guinée-Conakry. J'ai 25 ans. Je suis un immigrant vers là. J'étais activiste dans mon pays, vu la répression politique et les lois politiques qui s'adonnent à la communauté LGBTQ de mon pays. Donc, j'ai décidé de migrer vers là pour un peu de liberté mentale. Mais depuis que je suis venu ici, je me suis réfugié comme un sans-abri de la ville de Washington et Ismaël nous a beaucoup aidés à retrouver un abri et nous a orientés vers Shine. Là, on a un peu résidé. Tout allait bien au début, tout ceci. Un peu d'aide pour moi parce que je parle un peu la langue, mais ce n'était pas du tout facile côté religieux parce que vous n'êtes pas sans savoir que c'est tout le monde qui est... tout le monde n'est pas païen, il y a d'autres qui sont religieux et moi, je suis musulman pratiquant. Et j'avais eu des complicités un peu dans le mois de Ramadan parce que il y avait des règlements intérieurs qui s'apposaient à nous et qui disaient que nous ne pouvons pas manger vers la rupture dans la maison. Et on passait toute la journée comme ça sans manger parce qu'il y avait des règlements intérieurs dans l'organisation qui disaient que, voilà, on ne peut pas manger. Et vous n'êtes pas sans savoir vous n'êtes pas sans savoir connaître qu'il y a des affiches qui étaient dans la maison là-bas qui disaient que tout le monde est égal, quelle que soit ta religion, quelle que soit ton orientation sexuelle, tu viens du païen, chrétien, musulman, vous êtes tous égaux. Et je pense que s'ils doivent améliorer quelque chose, ils doivent améliorer le côté des personnes qui sont venant d'une minorité religieuse. Parce que ces personnes-là ont besoin aussi de pratiquer leurs connaissances et ils ont aussi besoin d'une liberté religieuse, au fait. Donc, moi et mon ami, nous avons des difficultés pour pratiquer et pour faire la rupture dans Shine là-bas. Et il y avait Andrés qui était là, qui nous aidait à avoir de la nourriture parce que nous ne pouvons pas manger à notre faim. Et ça, c'est un. De deux, il y a un problème aussi de traduction. La communauté est très grande. Il y a d'autres qui viennent dans des différents mondes, différents pays et différentes langues. Et le fait que ces personnes-là viennent dans un pays anglophone, ils ont un peu de tardif à pouvoir comprendre la langue, à pouvoir s'adapter, à parler parfaitement comme eux. Et j'ai eu affaire avec un personnel de la sécurité de Shine. Je ne vais jamais oublier ceci. J'étais venu lui demander s'il pouvait m'aider à avoir un balai pour que je puisse nettoyer ma chambre. Et après, il me dit que c'est pas de la manière dont je dois m'adresser à lui. Je lui ai dit, mais tu sais que je comprends pas la langue, je suis pas un natif américain ou je suis pas un natif anglophone. Donc, tu dois quand même être fier du fait que je viens, je m'adresse à toi. Au moins, tu puisses comprendre les mots que je puisse dire. Il me dit que non, bienvenue aux États-Unis, tu dois parler parfaitement comme nous. Et ça m'a fait mal.
Attends.
All right.
Just a minute, I'm completing my notes. Yes, good morning. My name is Nikki. I am from the country of Guinea. I am 25 years old. I am an immigrant. And the reason why I moved to this country was due to the fact that there was a lot of problem, a lot of pressure on the LGBTQ members. And I was actually denied mental freedom and a lot of other things. Since I moved here in the Washington, D.C. Area, I've been homeless at times. I ended up getting help from the community. At first, everything was fine with the organization called Shine, but there was issue I was confronted with, especially on the religious side. We are many people in under that organization. Some are following the religion, some are pagans. I personally, I am a Muslim, practicing Muslim. And during the month of Ramadan, it was difficult, the least to say impossible to follow my religion. So I was made to understand that I could not eat at the time I wanted, especially when it's time to break the fast. Therefore, I, with another person like me who was following that right, we would stay the whole day without eating. And in that shelter, there was a sign stating that we were all equal, but people who were practicing their religion didn't have the freedom they needed it. That was one. The second issue was interpretation ones. There were many people from many countries speaking many languages. And I'm gonna give you this example. One day, I went to one of the worker in the shelter and asked him a sweeper. That way I could clean my house. And he got into an argument with me, telling me, you have to talk like everybody else. Welcome to America. And so at that point, I stopped him. Continue.
OK. Il m'a répondu ceci et cela m'a fait mal parce que voilà, c'était pas à lui de me dire tout ceci. Il n'est pas sans savoir que de tout ce que nous avons vécu avant de venir là. Et je pense que quand on dit c'est un shelter qui est ouvert à toute personne, à la communauté LGBTQ et autres, je pense qu'il devait y avoir des mesures qui puissent recueillir tout ceci. Je n'ai pas de mal avec d'autres personnels du shelter parce que voilà, pour ne pas mentir, ceci, ils étaient bien. Le case manager et tout ceci, ils étaient bien, ils faisaient leur travail très bien. Mais je pense que le règlement, les lois qui sont dans les shelters doivent s'appliquer à tous ceux-ci qui sont à l'intérieur du shelter pour que les autres personnes, les personnes LGBTQ qui viennent dans le shelter puissent avoir aussi bénéficié de ce pouvoir dans le shelter pour que tout le monde se sente égaux, tout le monde se sent bien et il n'y a pas de discrimination de langue, discrimination religieuse, discrimination culturelle et tout ceci. Donc, c'était un peu le problème.
So that's how he replied to me, and it hurted me a lot. I already went through many problems before getting here. I mean, everybody else is doing his job correctly, whether it is the case manager or other people. I believe that the rules should apply to all, and not particularly the LGBTQ people. So there should not be a feeling of discrimination, whether it is religious or cultural. So that's basically what I wanted to say today.
Merci.
Merci.
Thank you so much. Are there any other French speakers that we should expect? Okay. And Mr. Modi, we're gonna send you a question in the chat before you leave.
Sure.
If you could just take a look and reply to my staff, that'd be helpful.
Good enough.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you to the Office of Human Rights for arranging for the French translation. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next panel includes Andres Mesa, Bilingual Street Outreach Specialist at SMILE, Cesar Toledo, Executive Director of the Wanda Alston Foundation, and Laura Brown, Executive Director for Shift Justice Project. Yep.
Am I good to go? Okay.
Yeah, you can go.
Hello again. I remember I saw you about 6 months back, and I'm happy to be back. Of course, I'm not back reporting the best of news, but even during Pride Month, I think one of the worst news I just found out, and it's not in my speech, is the cut to the transgender, gender nonconforming workforce programs. So Damien's Ministries, it's a program over there on Minnesota Avenue that's completely led by it's completely led by Black trans women. And it's an opportunity for individuals. And of course, while sex work is still real work, it's a door for those individuals who are looking for another type of employment when the regular workforce is denying them the opportunity. So through that program, you're able to learn how to do STI testing, HIV testing, and get into different career paths. And you're taught by people who look like you and have lived through what you've lived through. So it's a whole different level of accessibility. And it's honestly game-changing, and it's very disheartening to hear that those funds were cut. I know Nikki back there, shout out, also works there. And it gives people who are still looking for a status or just got a status a chance to work, because the beginning phase is a stipend-based program. So you don't really require like a tax ID or social security to work there. But back to the speech. Good morning. My name is Andres Mesa. I'm a bilingual street outreach worker at Smile. So I work with unhoused individuals who are LGBT or limited English proficient. As of this year, we have reached nearly 200 individuals. And unfortunately, the experience of getting denied at front-facing services due to language barriers, including shelter, day centers, DMVs, and more, is not an uncommon one. What is uncommon is the feeling of empowerment that these communities deserve, as access to these services should be a right for all DC residents. I recall a time when, after testifying at the DDS oversight hearing, we advocated for the need for linguistic accessibility and cultural competency, being two parallels, but equally important concepts. Afterwards, my boss and I were kind of ridiculed by DDS bilingual staff, and we were told verbatim, this is not Miami, this is not Los Angeles, this is DC, and you have to learn English to live and thrive here. This is a sentiment we hear and feel throughout the blood and veins of DC social services. If bilingual staff feel this way, just imagine what the rest of DC believes. I know this to not be true, as we have communities in Mount Pleasant, Georgia Avenue, Columbia Heights, and more that serve as examples of successful limited English proficient entrepreneurs, hard workers, business owners, who remind us this country does not have an official language. Whether it's Amharic, Mandarin, French, DC knows that our cultural mosaic is what allows DC to live and thrive. Since my last testimony in front of you nearly 6 months back, I have made language access complaints every month nonstop. It is overwhelming and disheartening to know I can only report the little I see, and I can attest that these violations occur daily and are occurring probably right now. More importantly, they lead to increases in housing instability, encampment, street homelessness, and ultimately leaving our limited English constituents burned and unwilling to use city resources. We indirectly tell our residents, these services won't help you, not because they can't, but because they don't want to. Creating an amendment where fines are paid to the victims will only create that empowerment I'm speaking of. After being turned away and given a hard time, why should DC residents feel empowered to report these violations? Rather, they feel intimidated, and worse, they feel their safety is on the line when it comes to reporting the very same housing program or social service that houses or helps you. They are scared of retaliation, and this change to the language access law will extinguish that fear and replace it with a sense of belonging. I think one of the largest things I hear when it comes to advising folks of their rights is they're afraid that they're going to get removed. They're afraid that they're going to lose a certain benefit. And I think the changes to language access by allowing those fines to go to the ones who are actually impacted would create a whole different game. It would allow individuals to actually feel like their voice matters. I also wanted to give a little shout out and highlight to Rosa Carillas, who does her job with the highest integrity. Rosa has handled all of my language access complaints with swiftness and importance. She is thorough and serves as a beacon that we need more individuals processing language access claims at OHR, because she is one of the very few people who actually upholds this law. I asked the council to push for the new amendment to give this law a backbone and teeth, because without tangible impacts for both community agencies and community members, we are failing our integrity to uphold morality, equality, and accountability. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Nadeau. My name is Cesar Toledo, the newly appointed Executive Director for the Wanda Austin Foundation. I just want to thank you again for joining us and celebrating June's service to the Wanda Austin Foundation and attending that event. As you know, the Wanda Austin Foundation is one of a few queer-led organizations in the district that provides housing and support services to homeless LGBTQ+ youth. And I'm here today to express my deepest and sincere gratitude and appreciation for the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ+ Affairs and ask for your continued support. As you know, the foundation was formed in 2008 to honor the life and the legacy of Wanda Austin, who was a fierce LGBTQ activist, feminist, and an organizer. Wanda dedicated her life fighting for justice, never backing down. And thanks to her leadership, the LGBTQ community was able to earn a lot of support and really increased representation across the DC government. Thanks to her leadership, additionally, she was able to really spearhead and launch the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ+ Affairs in 2005. And when that office was created under Mayor Williams, the mission and the objectives were pretty simple. One, serve as the liaison between the mayor and the various government agencies, identify areas of need for the LGBTQ+ community, advise the mayor on policy issues affecting the community, collecting and disseminating research. And over the last 2 decades, the office has lived up to those values it was established to uphold, and the community has greatly benefited from the office's services and leadership in the community. Today, it serves as the largest LGBTQ+ focused grant maker solely focused in the district, which is now more important than ever because of the decline of resources available to organizations like us who serve such a unique community. And additionally, it serves as a really essential hub for support and services for the community. Just this weekend, World Pride was hosted in DC, where we witnessed an unprecedented turnout, which also generated more than $500 million in economic output. And we saw historic metro ridership and just hundreds of events, really celebrating the community and acknowledging the journey that we have been through. As the gayest city in the world, the queer community is truly a powerful economic engine. DC has long served as a beacon of hope across the country, providing refuge to those facing anti-LGBTQ+ attacks. And it's because of this office and the critical resources it provides that organizations like the Wanda Austin Foundation can offer life-saving support to the community. Thank you for your time and your allyship.
Thank you very much. Laura.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Nadeau and your staff. My name is Laura Brown, Ward 6 resident and Executive Director of First Shift Justice Project. First Shift represents parenting and caregiving workers to enforce their workplace rights. Our lawyers regularly file cases at the DC Office of Human Rights, representing our clients in discrimination claims, claims for failure to provide pregnancy accommodations, and violations of DC's Family Medical Leave Act. I testify today about the mayor's proposed budget for the DC Office of Human Rights. Specifically, I request full funding for the Fairness in Human Rights Amendment Act of 2023 and the restoration of enforcement-related staff positions in OHR's FY26 budget. The Fairness in Human Rights Amendment Act of 2023 was passed in December and represents years of work on the part of advocates and your office to enable more meaningful enforcement of employee protections against discrimination. It protects the rights of victims of discrimination to have their day in court by extending the deadline for filing cases, permitting them to file a complaint in court after they have exhausted the administrative process, and adjusting the definition of sexual harassment to avoid forced arbitration. OHR needs funding to implement this bill, to revise procedural regulations, train OHR staff on the updated complaint process and definition of sexual harassment, address a potential increase in work for the commission and hearing examiners, and provide education and outreach to the public about the changes. OHR says they need funding for 3 staff positions to implement this bill. Relative to other budget requests, this one is modest. For FY26, I believe I read it would require $339,000. A lesser alternative would be to amend the statute to at least exclude the statute of limitations provision from the funding requirement, so that aspect of the law could go into effect even if the bill cannot be funded. Thank you for considering this request. Second, I urge your office to exert whatever influence it can to unfreeze OHR staff positions that are being held hostage by the mayor. My understanding is that a fully staffed OHR is 78.5 employees and that currently there are only 63. The mayor is proposing freezing 6 more positions because of the FY25 budget debacle related to the federal spending bill. In total, that means OHR will be operating with over 27% less staff than they need. My understanding is that the 6 positions are also budgeted for in FY26, and that OHR has requested a waiver from the hiring freeze for which they have received no response. You've heard the phrase robbing Peter to pay Paul. Well, that's what's happening at OHR, with staff reassigned, really stretched, among the teams to cover gaps. I will admit to not having a complete grasp of who has the authority to do what under these circumstances, but as the committee charged with oversight of OHR's performance, I seek your support. First Shift testifies regularly at OHR performance hearings about significant delays in case processing for our clients. These delays have real impact. For example, I said 2 in my testimony, but it's actually 3 of the businesses we filed complaints against have literally closed over the years that our clients' cases have been pending at OHR, making it even more difficult to attain any meaningful remedy for the harm that has been done to them. OHR has ultimately handed them a Pyrrhic victory by finding probable cause without the possibility of obtaining adequate relief. Finally, now is not the time to be cutting staff and reducing the effectiveness of an agency that protects people from discrimination. For at least the next 4 years, the Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is not going to be a great place for people to go for recourse because of rollbacks to their guidance and interpretation of civil rights laws, as well as funding cuts and other issues. Instead, more victims of employment discrimination are going to seek relief at OHR. There's also a real risk, as reported recently in the New York Times, that local human rights agencies like OHR will lose federal funding because they handle claims from transgender employees. During Pride Month, we can't really march in a parade and claim to be an inclusive community if we don't recognize the value of the very agency charged with protecting our residents and workers who are victimized because of their differences. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I just want to note that, that was weird. I do have some follow-up questions for Mr. Mesa and Mr. Toledo, but I'm not going to ask them here. Okay. And Ms. Brown, if we were to amend the Fairness and Human Rights statute to remove the subject to appropriations clause, what portion exactly would go into effect that wouldn't require the funding? Is it the revision of the procedural regulations?
That is a question for the people who will testify after me.
Okay.
The government witnesses would be in the best position to, but there has been, I won't say extensive, but there has been a communication back and forth between the advocates about that issue.
Okay.
And I can certainly get back to you.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much to this panel. Is there anyone else in the room that wanted to testify in person? Okay. Our panel is virtual. It includes Susan McClanahan, Fair Housing Director, Equal Rights Center, Nancy Leon, Director of Advocacy at Many Languages, One Voice. We'll get them up on the panel now. Here we go. Okay, Ms. McClanahan, when you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you so much. My name is Susie McClanahan. I'm the Fair Housing Director at the Equal Rights Center. The ERC appreciates the opportunity to testify at the budget oversight hearing of OHR today. The Equal Rights Center is a civil rights opportunity the Equal Rights Center is a civil rights organization that identifies and seeks to eliminate unlawful and unfair discrimination in housing, employment, and public accommodations in our home community of Greater Washington, D.C. and nationwide. For many years, the ERC has conducted intakes with individuals alleging housing discrimination in the district, investigated individual claims and systemic forms of housing discrimination, pursued enforcement of the Fair Housing Act, DC Human Rights Act, and other local anti-discrimination laws as needed, and conducted education and outreach about fair housing protections and requirements. The ERC is an organizational complainant or non-attorney representative for individual complainants, has filed more than 50 fair housing complaints with OHR in the last 3 years. The ERC calls on DC Council to first encourage the mayor's office to unfreeze 2 housing investigator positions so that OHR can fill those vacancies. And second, provide additional funding to the enforcement unit so the agency can improve complaint processing timelines. These steps are critical to ensuring that OHR can carry out its mission and that DC residents can meaningfully report housing discrimination. First, the ERC testified at OHR's performance oversight hearing earlier this year about the serious complaint backlog, noting that the delays have considerably worsened last year. More recently, OHR lost 2 of its 3 investigators on the green team, one of the 3 investigative teams in the agency's enforcement unit. The purple and orange teams are tasked with investigating employment claims, while the green team handles most claims outside of employment, including complaints alleging discrimination in housing, public accommodations, and education. The 2 open green team investigator positions are funded in the fiscal year 2025 and proposed fiscal year 2026 budget, but OHR has been unable to fill these vacancies because of the mayor's recent hiring freeze. OHR has submitted waiver requests to the mayor's office to fill these vacancies, but in my understanding has not received any response. It is simply untenable to assign a single investigator to the entire caseload of discrimination complaints for housing, public accommodations, and education. If the mayor does not grant a waiver to these vacancies, the investigation of these complaints at OHR could come to a practical standstill, unfairly denying justice to DC residents reporting discrimination. The ERC encourages DC Council to take all steps within their power to support OHR's waiver request to the mayor's office to unfreeze these positions. Second, OHR has been underfunded for years, which prevents it from achieving its mandate to enforce the district's civil rights laws. Yet the mayor's proposed fiscal year 2026 budget would decrease OHR's budget by almost $900,000. It's our understanding that the funding cuts would predominantly come from the elimination of positions in the enforcement unit. Funding cuts would prevent OHR from rolling out changes to the enforcement team structures that were focused on streamlining operations. Specifically, one of OHR's top priorities this year has been the creation of a dedicated intake team to improve intake and investigation processing timelines. Currently, some investigators are juggling conducting intake interviews in addition to investigating complaints, which is causing delays at both the intake and investigation stages of the complaint process. According to the agency's fiscal year 2025 first quarter report, 555 inquiries were pending an intake interview. Of those, 246 or 44% had been pending an intake interview for more than 4 months. Creation of the intake team would hopefully reduce delays in the complaint process, but it's been impossible to hire an intake manager and additional intake staff with so many frozen FTE positions. Without additional funding to fully staff the agency's enforcement unit, complainants will have to continue to wait for months, even years, for their cases to be resolved. Many complainants have shared that the process is time-consuming, resource-intensive, confusing, and emotionally draining. The burdensome nature of OHR's process can even be a deterrent to individuals seeking to file a complaint. The ERC encourages DC Council to increase funding for OHR's enforcement unit so that they are sufficiently staffed in order to ensure that incidents of discrimination in the city are meaningfully investigated and resolved in a timely manner. Lastly, just to recap, the ERC urges DC Council and Mayor Bowser to fully fund OHR so the agency is fully equipped to enforce the district's civil rights laws. The district prides itself on being a place that is welcoming to residents and visitors of all identities and has adopted some of the strongest civil rights protections in the country in order to safeguard that status. However, those protections are meaningless if the primary agency tasked with enforcing them is chronically underfunded, as OHR has been. Thank you so much for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Leon?
Yeah, good afternoon, Chairperson Nadeau, members of the committee. My name is Nancy Leon. I'm the Director of Advocacy at Many Languages, One Voice, or also known as MLAV. MLAV also leads the DC Language Access Coalition. I'm here today to urge the Council to preserve the current funding for the Office of Human Rights for the next fiscal year. Funding OHR's language access program is critical to the investments needed to implement and strengthen the 2004 DC Language Access Act. At MLAB, we recognize that language access is fundamental to having the best city in the world. Language access helps many of our neighbors access healthcare, housing, public benefits, employment protections, education, and city services. Now more than ever, language access is crucial when those in the no to limited English proficient communities continue to face heightened barriers, attacks, and discrimination. A police dispatcher cannot communicate with a limited English proficient resident without language access services, and parents shouldn't have to use their children to translate for them. Language access is essential and the fiber that holds our city together. OHR plays a critical role in dispelling misinformation around language access rights in this community. Through community conversations and meetings with our members over the last few months, we've heard an uptick in misconceptions around language access. We're proud to partner with OHR to inform our DC neighbors that in DC, we can speak any language without fear of a fine or repercussion. In DC, you can ask and obtain interpretation when accessing government services. And in DC, language access is still the law. DC's lucky to have the 2004 Language Access Act and OHR, particularly Rosa Carrillo and her team, as a vital partner in helping investigate these complaints and mediate the corrective actions. However, the law has been in place for over 20 years, and there are still some serious gaps and challenges in enforcement and implementation. The testimonies from Andres from Smile and their participants demonstrate that. The work that OHR does cannot be effective without adequate resources, staff capacity, and a more robust language access law. So we urge the committee to continue to fund the OHR Language Access Program to ensure its robust implementation of the Language Access Act, invest in improving enforcement mechanisms to the 2004 Language Access Act through an amendment that brings accountability for agencies that have multiple violations, and work with the DC Language Access Coalition to continue strengthening the Act. Thank you so much for your time and for your commitment to language justice. Many languages, one DC voice, just one more thing that makes our city the best in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Where did I put my pen? Lost my pen, folks. Ah, there it is. Please hold. All right, council members, they're just like us. Okay, so appreciate the testimony. Ms. Leon, can you say more about the challenges related to the implementation of the Language Access Act? I'm interested specifically in whether advocates are hearing from the community on whether DC agencies are creating a culture of fear around asking for interpretation services or being fined for speaking their native tongue.
Yes, so I think particularly following the executive order around English as the official language, that in particular has created a sense that people can't ask for any kind of language services anymore. I think in addition to the challenges that people have sometimes in going and asking for interpretation, we've heard that sometimes even when they have a card, the I Speak card, they still aren't able to access their services. I think they already go in with fear because of the current climate. And I think it just adds an extra layer to the fear that people have around asking for an interpreter.
Got it. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you both for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to thank all of our public witnesses for participating today. We will do some follow-up after the hearing. We're now going to turn to our first government witness, Charlotte Woodard, Director of the Mayor's Office of Veterans Affairs. If you could both remain standing, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you are about to give to the Committee on Public Works and Operations is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? When you're ready, you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Nadeau and members of the Committee on Public Works and Operations and those watching today. First, I would like to introduce the individual to my right is Joseph S. Caroma Jr., Mayor's Office of Veteran Affairs, Director of Operation. My name is Charlotte K. Woodard. I am honored to continue to serve our military community as the Director of Mayor's Office of Veteran Affairs. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support of Mayor Bowser's Grow DC fiscal year 2026 budget proposal. As you are aware, the district will face both opportunities and challenge in the years ahead. The fiscal year 2026 budget reflects Mayor Bowser's commitment to fiscal responsibility while prioritizing critical investments that will help grow DC's economy and support its residents. The mayor has put forth a balanced approach that prioritizes education, clean and safe communities, and the growth agenda. A target force of attracting high-growth industry, supporting small businesses, and making district an attractive place for companies to invest and grow. This includes a bold proposal such as the redevelopment of the RFK, sites to bring the Washington Commanders back to DC, which we stimulate local economic activity and job creation. The budget also includes a reorganization within the Executive Office of the Mayor, with the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs. MOVA's budget chapter will fold into EOM as part of the new community partnership team within MOCA, along with the Mayor's Office of Returning Citizen Affairs, the Mayor's Office of Women Policy and Initiative, and the Mayor's Office of Volunteerism and Partnership. The new division within MOCA will focus on building and expanding relationships with the philanthropic community. The goal is to secure and mobilize volunteer resources, strategic partners to support community initiatives, ensuring that the district have the tools necessary to thrive. This approach leverages public-private collaboration to enhance service, support nonprofit organization, and create a sustainable impact, including the focus on veterans, returning citizens, and women. This reorganization reflects the mayor's commitment to efficient governance, inclusive community engagement, and a strategic partnership, positioning DC with a long-term success and strengthening resident support. Despite of these administrations and organization revisions, there is no change to MOVA's core programs, including outreach, recognition, engagement of the district 28,000 veterans and their families. MOVA's fiscal year 26 budget will continue at 7 full-time equivalent employees and 1,246,526, reflecting no change from fiscal year 25. I would like to spend the next several minutes describing some of the programs, services, engagements of our office will continue to lead. MOVA's operation links directly to 3 core elements through 3 pillars of service, programs, and outreach. Over the fiscal year and to date, MOVA has served and enrolled directly and engaged 6,227 DC veterans and their families. MOVA assists veterans, veteran spouse, family members, and survivors in applying for their benefits from the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs by initiating and reopening VA disability on their behalf. Additionally, MOVA prioritizes connecting our DC veterans to resources is necessary to give these heroes a fair shot. The fiscal year 26 budget funds 2 accredited district veteran service officers who complete benefit submission on veterans' behalf and advise veterans on VA disability claim appeal process and notify veterans about claim decisions as they receive. To date, in fiscal year 25, MOVA has assisted and filled claims for over 138 DC veterans. During the fiscal year of 2024, MOVA Veteran Service Officer filed 95 claims resulting in one-time retroactive award totaling $30,658.03 and recurring monthly compensation of $100,662,192.76. MOVA's next pillar of support is programs, specifically transportation program. The fiscal year 26 budget allocates $268,000 to Vets Ride, a 7-day per week program that has provided over 37,981 free taxi cab rides to thousands of DC veterans. Enrollment is available to any DC veteran making under $45,000 annually, senior citizens, and those who are recently unemployed. Veterans receive 10 free rides vouchers per month to any location in DC, as well as several veteran medical centers in Maryland and Virginia. From 2024 through 2025 to date, Vets Ride has provided nearly 1,428 DC veterans with 17,385 trips to medical appointment, residential facilities, beauty and clothing service, few distribution sites, financial and commercial buildings, government and social services, and employment interviews. The DC Disabled Veteran Homestead Deduction Tax Program waives property tax for the first $445,000 of residential real property owned by a veteran who has been classified by the VA as having a total and permanent disability as a result of a service incurred or service aggregate condition, or is paid at the 100% disability rating as a result of unemployability. To date, MOVA has processed 353 applications. 150 disabled veterans were granted, 80 veterans recertified. When combined, these deductions equal an estimated savings of $673,285 for our wounded warriors. The program will remain funded during fiscal year 2026, allowing our veterans to maintain resilience and sustainable housing in all 8 wards. MOVA's third pillar of support is outreach, community engagement. MOVA will continue to support its outreach efforts to promote its service and rely on important messages, connecting with district, federal, and private service and resources, as well as events celebrating our veterans. MOVA will continue to host its monthly resources symposium, formerly known as the Monthly Veterans Roundtable, table events, and its annual Veterans Day social or recognition ceremony. In fiscal year 24 and to date, MOVA's community engagement has included fielding an estimate of 889 monthly inquiries from DC veterans and their family members. MOVA employees engage with DC veterans through both verbal and nonverbal communication to connect them to MOVA's service programs or partner agency, including those at risk of homeless and unsheltered. Our team makes direct referrals to transitional and supportive service for veterans' families, housing partners, and advocate for veterans who are eligible for housing voucher. During fiscal year 26, MOVA's LGBTQIA+ veteran coordinator will continue to provide service to veterans who are members of the LGBTQIA+ community, providing an alternative platform for veterans residents. In fiscal year 25, the MOVA's LGBTQIA+ veteran coordinator provided 123 LGBTQIA+ veteran service. The LGBTQIA veteran coordinator will continue monthly meetings regarding VA's proper care and ensuring safe care. In closing, The resources allocated to the Mayor's Office of Veteran Affairs in fiscal year 26 budget would play a critical role in ensuring that our veterans and their family receive the benefits they have earned while providing direct support to Mayor's Bowser Grow DC initiative to grow the economy and support our residents. I want to acknowledge that Mayor Bowser continued to seize the value of investing in our communities and that no major cuts have been made to the staff or key service within the community affair cluster. I also invite anyone who may be interested in contacting our office to please do so by calling us at 202-724-5454, emailing us at ova@dc.gov, or by visiting us online, communityaffairs.dc.gov/MOVA. I welcome any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Just a few questions from the Council Office on Race Equity. In your proposed FY26 budget, which reductions may burden certain communities more than others?
Yes, to answer that question, there are no reductions in the proposed fiscal year 25 budget.
How much of the agency's data is collected or disaggregated by race?
Just one moment. Yes, so the office has an intake form and is on a voluntary disclosure, which allows MOVA to capture race and ethnicity, sorry.
So could you say that again?
Ethnicity,
Oh, okay.
sorry.
No, it's okay.
Tongue-tied here.
Sorry. How does the office coordinate with other agencies, especially those that involve Veterans Affairs, such as the Department of Employment Services?
Yeah, so MOVA collaborates and partners with over 30 internal and external agencies. And that could be involving with assisting veterans on a multi-VA entitlements, such as homeless, unemployment, as food insecurity, career enhancement, and just resources. But it's not including engagements with DCHR, DOES. We partner with DHS, we partner with DMV, we partner with Department for Hire Vehicles. And for example, MOVA's Pathway program, which helps district veterans whose tickets are 90 days and over to help them rectify their tickets. And our collaboration is with Central Collection Unit at the Office of Chief Financial Officer, excuse me, sorry.
Thank you.
Mhm.
What new initiatives are you planning for FY26?
We do not plan any new initiatives for FY26.
Anything that you plan to sunset or discontinue in FY26?
No, we do not. But however, MOVA will continue its core services offering to veterans and their family.
Are there any changes to the Vets Ride program or budget in FY26?
No, there are no changes to the budget to the Vets Ride program for
How-
2026.
How many rides do you project that your FY26 budget will cover?
It would be 10 rides per month.
And that's the same as last year?
That is correct.
Will you be able to serve the same number of veterans?
Yes, that's correct. On an average, we are projecting 11,000 completed trips for fiscal year, in this fiscal year, yes.
Okay. Okay, we answered that. 10 rides per month. No. Your performance oversight responses indicated that the application option that was being added to the Vet Rides program launch has been delayed. Can you give us some background on why and provide an updated timeline?
Ma'am, I am unable to provide an update on the progress of the application.
Why?
It is out of my purview. It's with the contracting company, so I'm unable to provide an update.
What's the company?
Transco.
Is it your contract or is it with a different agency?
We have an MOU with Department for Hire Vehicles.
Got it. We can ask them. How many applications have you processed for the Veterans Homestead Deduction Program?
Yes, since the program began in fiscal year 23, which was October the 1st of 2022, the office has received 353 applications for the Veterans Homestead Deduction Program.
Have you processed and have all those been approved?
All applications have been processed and sent to the Office of Tax and Revenue.
Do they communicate back with you if anybody is rejected?
If someone doesn't meet the eligibility requirement, yes, ma'am.
How many did that occur for?
I do not have that number right now, but I can get it to you later.
Do we know how many district residents are eligible for the deduction that haven't claimed it yet?
So right now, we're unable to turn the exact number of district residents who are eligible for the reduction. However, we do have an approximately 1794 DC veterans who are 100% VA disability compensation. However, not all are income eligible for the disabled veteran homestead deduction.
Okay. And do we know if they're all homeowners?
That I do not know.
Okay.
I only get a breakdown from the VA of the percentage of and numbers who would meet 100% VA compensation disability.
In your performance oversight responses, you noted that a common sentiment at the resource symposiums is that DC does not offer veterans the same resources or benefits as neighboring states. In particular, the homestead tax deduction in DC has a salary limitation, while Maryland and Virginia have no salary requirements. Could you say more about what you've heard?
So yes, to answer your question, that is correct. In the states of Maryland and Virginia, the disabled veteran homestead deduction has no salary cap on their application. And the state also mentions in their application process for surviving spouses as well to obtain disabled veteran homestead deduction. So whereas the District of Columbia does not. From the DC residents, we do hear from the veteran community who are currently inquiring about the surviving spouse information to possibly gain the ability to apply for disabled veteran homestead deduction in DC. And so later I can provide you a link that can give you additional information from Maryland and Virginia of their application process for surviving spouse.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier this year, in partnership with your office, I introduced the Spousal Homestead Exemption Amendment Act of 2025, which expands eligibility for the disabled veterans homestead exemption to surviving spouses and domestic partners. In your opinion, how many additional people would the program cover?
So based on the research and the information, the dependent list of processing our applications, the expansion could impact maybe about 40 families. Since the program began, approximately 5 spouses have reached out to inquire about the exemption.
Do you have an estimate of the increased cost?
Yes, the cost would be minimum as benefits have already been provided to the veteran. So,
Great. How's your office preparing to conduct outreach and make sure people are aware of the updated eligibility?
yes, Chairwoman Mado, the office will broadcast as it usually does is its routine strategic communication platform. So using a multifaceted approach to its outreach efforts to increase awareness about the program. And that could be tabling numerous veteran service organizations such as US Vets, Resource Fairs, Veteran Affairs, Winter Haven, Access Housing, American Legion, Veterans Foreign Welfare, Disabled Veterans Affairs, local community events, town halls, and additionally, The office we partner with Blue Star Families, along with Department of Aging and Community Living, and we'll put it on a newsletter and our social media platform.
Thank you.
Mhm.
In your budget chapter, there was a line titled Recognition with over a $500,000 budget. Could you please break down how this funding is being allocated?
Yes, and so the MOVA has 7 full-time employees, and so 3 of which are paid through this recognition, that line item. So 3 team members work on spotlighting veterans community. This includes a public information officer. This includes this gentleman right here, and it also includes our intake officer, and his position is Director of Operations.
And the $500,000, that's entirely allocated to full-time equivalents?
That is correct.
Does that include fringe benefits?
Yes, it
Getting a
does.
nod, okay.
It does.
Okay. How does the mayor's proposed community affairs subtitle change the role and mission of your office?
So first, Chairman DeVoe, the office roles and mission will remain unchanged. There's no change at all. The community affairs subtitle changes administrative and organization, but it does not impact any MOVA programs, staff, engagement, or other service to district veterans. However, the alignment is a new community partnership unit within MOCA will allow MOVA to continue and expand opportunities to secure and mobilize volunteer resources and strategic partners to support the community initiative, ensuring that the district has the tools necessary to thrive.
Thank you. And I appreciate your testimony today. Those are all the questions I have for you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Well,
you.
now, thank you. We will now turn to our final government witness, Mr. Kenneth Saunders, Director of the Office of Human Rights. They don't have that many MPD witnesses. Actually, they're about 100. Okay. See 2 of you. Are there going to be 3 of you? 4 of you? Oh, okay. Great. So before you get too comfy, I'm going to have each of you stand and raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give to the Committee on Public Works and Operations is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Great. Thanks. You may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Nadeau, members of the committee and staff. I'm Kenneth Saunders, Director of the Office of Human Rights, and I appreciate the opportunity to testify before you today. As you know, we are facing yet another challenging fiscal year, and district agencies have had to make unprecedented decisions to sustain the delivery of our core services. I would like to thank the mayor for delivering a balanced budget to grow DC. The mayor's proposed FY26 budget for OHR is approximately $9 million, comprised of $8.6 million in local funds and $400,000 in federal grant funds. OHR is the district's civil rights enforcement agency. Our mission is to eradicate discrimination, expand equal opportunity, and to protect the human rights of all people in the district. In our workplaces, housing, schools, public spaces, and government programs. We enforce the District of Columbia's Human Rights Act and its amendments and other local anti-discrimination laws, in addition to several federal laws, including Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Fair Housing Act, and the Americans with Disabilities Act. In the past year, the office has charged with enforcing or implementing new laws, including Sexual Harassment Data Collection and Reporting Act, the Domestic Worker Employment Rights Amendment Act, the Human Rights Enhancement Amendment Act, the Eviction Record Sealing Authority and Fairness in Renting Amendment Act, and the Fairness in Human Rights Administration Amendment Act. Although no funding or FTEs were allocated for the Sexual Harassment Data Collection and Reporting Act, the office continues to implement it by collecting agency data, resolving discrepancies, and submitting the required report to council and the Office of the Attorney General. We've also begun work on the recently enacted Open Movie Captioning Requirement Amendment Act of 2024, which went into effect of October of last year. So far, in FY25, OHR has provided guidance and updates on the new law on our website, developed an audit and compliance procedure, and engaged in outreach to theater owners. I'm happy to say that OHR also conducted its first audit in February 2025, resulting in 100% compliance by DC covered theaters. The Fairness in Human Rights Administration Act of 2024, which went into effect on March 21st, 2025, requires significant funds to implement. The Fairness Act expands the definition of sexual harassment beyond what the Human Rights Act currently covers, provides additional rights and remedies for district employees, and expands the rights of complainants to remove their cases to court. Implementation will require OHR to overhaul our procedural regulations, draft and publish new guidance documents, fact sheets, and training materials, creating new legal standards for the updated definition of sexual harassment, retrain the agency's intake staff, investigators, and mediators on these new standards, create new legal notices of rights to complainants and respondents at every stage of our process, and conduct a public awareness and outreach campaign regarding OHR's new procedures and new rights granted by the amendments. The Cannabis Employment Protections Amendment Act and the Medical Necessity Restroom Access Act also remain unfunded and therefore cannot be implemented by OHR at this time. Community education remains a cornerstone of our mission to promote human rights and equal opportunity throughout the district. OHR provides tailored trainings on the new laws we enforce. Additionally, we engage the community through various outreach events, including open houses to make OHR's resources more accessible, and meet communities where they are, interactive listening labs to hear directly from the communities we serve, and tailored workshops with community-based organizations and our federal partners. Through specialized programming such as the Language Access Program, Youth Bullying Prevention Program, and Creating Safer Spaces Program, we offer direct support and resources to communities. OHR also educates and informs the community through reports, training materials, including the Sexual Harassment Data Collection and Reporting Act report, Language Access Annual Report, the Youth Bullying Prevention Biennial Report, the Racial Equity Achieves Results REACH Act training, content, quality enforcement data updates, and our annual report. Recruitment and retention remain the top priority for the office. The mayor's budget supports 77 full-time employees. To date, the agency has processed 7 internal promotions and onboarded a new general counsel, demonstrating our commitment to investing in internal talent and strategic leadership. To further support retention, the agency has issued incentive awards recognizing staff members for their dedication, hard work, and exceptional contributions to OHR's mission. Additionally, in alignment with our values of equity and community engagement, OHR directed significant expenditures to certify local small business enterprises in the past fiscal year, reinforcing our commitment to supporting the local economy while meeting OHR's operational needs. Lastly, I'm pleased to report that OHR has selected a vendor for the case management system, and we are in the early stages of implementation. The mayor's budget provides $300,000 in FY26 to support the implementation costs of the new case management system. In closing, we appreciate the mayor's and the council's commitment to civil rights and equal opportunity for everyone who resides in, works in, or visits the district. Thank you to my colleagues at OHR for your hard work. OHR only strives because of your dedication to our vital mission. I would like to thank our community partners for their advocacy and you, Chairperson Nadeau, for your leadership in advancing human rights in the district. I would like to also take a moment to honor Chief Judge Erica Pearson, a cherished leader at OHR. We carry her legacy forward in every case we investigate, every community we reach, and every right we protect. This concludes my testimony. I am happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you very much. I'd like to begin by asking some questions offered to the council by our Office on Race Equity that will help the committee better understand any racial disparities that may exist in agency operations. In your proposed FY26 budget, are there specific programs or allocations that are designed to address racial or economic inequities faced by district residents?
Specifically, all of our programs cover that, so I don't know anything that will be covered disproportionately, so not specific for any protected area.
Thank you. In your proposed FY26 budget, which reductions may burden certain communities more than others?
I don't see anything disproportionately. One of the things I would say is we have been attempting to increase our outreach events east of the river with respect to our community outreach, which we have done this year.
Director, thank you for all your hard work and thank you to your staff for their tireless efforts. Let's start with some general questions. I'm concerned about the agency's budget, so I want to start big picture. Do you think your proposed budget for FY26 is adequate?
Yeah, I'm having those discussions with the deputy mayor. As of right now, I think that we can fulfill our mission. There will be some backlog issues and things of that nature, but we will be able to fulfill our mission.
Say more about the potential backlog issue.
Seeing whereas the investigators will probably be doing double duty and we cannot stand up the intake team at this time, there may be an increase in the backlog.
What are the agency's current budget pressures?
I'll defer to my.
Good afternoon, council member. In terms of for FY25.
Yeah.
For FY25, OHR had to reduce its NPS spending by about $200,000 due to the CR issue. That money currently is frozen. There is an opportunity that the city administrator's office or the mayor's office will allow us to release some of that funding, but that is how our budget was impacted in terms of NPS. In terms of PS, we have about 6 positions that we were actively recruiting for, that we had to put that recruitment on hold also due to that process. And, you know, we're hopeful that possibly that funding will be released.
Thank you.
No problem.
What are the agency's operational pressure points?
Operationally, I would say the enforcement unit, the demand for services.
Sure. Can you elaborate on that at all?
Just the demand for services, for
Mhm.
intake services, the
Oh,
investigation.
okay. So intake services in the enforcement unit.
Yes.
Okay. What is the agency's FTE account?
Total,
Yeah.
77.5, I believe.
How many of those are currently vacant?
I think it is,
So total, we have about 21.5 vacancies. Of that, 14.5 are frozen, and 6 of those were in an active recruiting status that we were hoping to fill this year.
Frozen for vacancy savings?
Correct,
And the other 6 are frozen because of the CR?
correct.
What is the agency's vacancy savings rate?
18%. Correct.
What percentage of that is mandatory?
1%.
And so the standard vacancy savings rate is 4.6% for an agency of your size. Why is your rate higher?
That's correct. Would you like to answer that, Elizabeth?
Sure. The vacancy savings that was applied in both the agency submitted budget and the mayor's budget is higher to first to meet the mark and second due to the policy decisions.
What policy decisions?
There was an additional $379,895 increasing vacancy savings.
Have you made any requests of the mayor to unfreeze any of the positions in the enforcement unit?
Yes, we have.
How many of them?
The 4.
What's the fringe rate?
The FY26 fringe rate is 27.4%.
Thank you. Any reprogrammings within the agency?
So for FY25 to date, there have been no reprogrammings for the agency
Okay.
that have been approved.
Has the agency hired an intake manager yet?
no, we have not because of the hiring freeze.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Takes a minute. The freeze kicked in. Yeah. All right, shifting to non-personnel services. I don't see any major reduction in the intakes unit in non-personnel, but I do see a significant decrease in the investigation units of 582,000 reduction. Could you say more about that?
Those are the positions that are frozen in the unit.
You have that in non-personnel? Oh, just a typo. Okay, sorry. Okay, we've talked about that. Then there's a shift of 3 FTEs from continuing full-time to term full-time. Can you explain that?
That's simply individuals going from promotion, from probation to full-time to merit employees.
Great. The Human Rights Services Program has a $315,000 cut. What was cut there?
The cut in Human Rights Service Program is mainly due to the increase in the vacancy savings of $943,000, removal of one-time funding for the Fair Housing Program, $200,000 under the Fair Housing Program, removal of one-time funding for tip minimum wage training, net reductions in PS to align with the existing position funding needs of the agency for $16,000, and offset by the increase in the investigation of the Second Chance Amendment Act for $296,000, and an increase in Octo's IT assessment for $15,000.
Did you get all that? Okay. You do. Okay. Okay, so the 199, you said 200 cut in the Fair Housing Program, that's right?
Yes.
200, okay. And the reason for that was to align personnel services and fringe benefits with projected costs. What does that mean?
So specifically, the $200,000 for the Fair Housing Program, that was reduced from our budget in FY '26. So that was a one-time enhancement that we received last year to do the source of income testing. We're not receiving that funding again in FY '26. There are no FTEs associated with that. That is strictly non-personnel services.
Got it. I see an increase of 13,000, you said, in the bullying prevention oversight program. What will that go toward?
That's mainly just an adjustment for salary and fringe.
Got it. And what's the program what has the program achieved over the last 2 years, the bullying program, the anti-bullying program?
Excuse me, the question was?
Can you talk about the program's achievements over the last 2 years?
I have James Yu, the AD, but essentially, and I have gone to some of these meetings, it's the youth bullying program. They go out to the schools, they have the training courses. I think I've probably been to about 2 or 3 of those. So there are school employees, teachers that are educating the staff regarding those bullying measures. Very effective.
Great. What resources have you offered the commission since you were confirmed as a director?
Excuse me.
The hearing unit, the resources you added.
Currently, we have a acting chief judge. We have a contractor, administrative law judge, and also a law clerk.
In your opinion, is the Human Rights Commission understaffed and underfunded?
I wouldn't say that. I'm looking at the caseload. It has increased over the past year. But one of the things that we are looking at, we gave them the resources when I came on board so that they were at where they were before. So it's something that we do keep an eye on. So it may be something that we have to take a closer look at if we get an increase in the cases that are assigned to the commission.
What are the resources that you gave when you came on board?
They got the law clerk.
The law clerk, okay.
Yes. They They got the contractor who basically stepped in as the administrative law judge. The person that is currently serving as acting chief judge was the administrative law judge.
Okay, but those two positions already existed.
Mhm. Excuse me?
There were already two ALJs there, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so those aren't new.
No, those aren't.
Okay, is the clerk new or is that?
I think that for the last few years, there's been a clerk from Georgetown University.
Yes, so we used to have a clerk that was funded that would change every year. We
Yeah.
talked to the committee about this a couple of years
Yeah,
ago. I
yeah.
believe that you made the recommendation that, for institutional knowledge, we should probably invest in more of a full-time staff. And so we did take that into consideration. And we actually have a full-term legal assistant down there now at the commission.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd also like to say, we entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Rental Housing Commission regarding the mediation services to make sure that there are no conflicts with the cases when they're having settlement conferences and things of that nature.
Oh, interesting. So how has that been working?
I would have to check with the acting chief. I'm not sure of how many settlement conferences that they have, but we did work out an agreement with the Rental Housing Commission, and that is still in effect.
So does that divert some of the cases to them then effectively? Yes, I'm getting some nods.
No,
behind you.
essentially what it does is it takes care to make sure that there's not a conflict.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
Got it. And a conflict would be, say, a case moving through both bodies at the same time, or that can happen, but they just need to be coordinated.
Right. You wouldn't want the person handling any settlement negotiation to be the judge that's hearing over the matter.
Got it. I see a $58,000 decrease in continuing full-time at the Human Rights Commission, and then a $24,000 increase in continuing full-time, but overall that would be a $39,000 cut. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, so that's due to just a personnel adjustment. When we lost the chief judge and we had to put the existing ALJ into a temporary promotion, there were some offsets in the budget in terms of the salaries, and so that resulted in that, but we were able to make those adjustments.
Okay. The commission has consistently pointed out that their judges' salaries are lower than others. For example, we think the acting chief ALJ is underpaid by about $16,000 compared to our late chief judge, and by up to about $26,000 in comparison to an ALJ at the Office of Administrative Hearings. Would you support a salary increase for the chief judge?
Sure, but I think that that's a matter we really have to address with HR. There are different classifications for administrative law judges.
Okay, that's helpful. The commission also needs a second ALJ position, a current contractor position to become, that current one to become permanent with an appropriate salary of $133,000. Do you support that?
Are you speaking of having 3 ALJs?
No, I believe we need them both to be permanent positions.
Yes, but as of right now, we cannot fill the chief judge's position.
Why?
Because of the hiring freeze.
Because of the hiring freeze.
Yes. So that's why we have the contract.
Oh, God, stupid hiring freeze. Okay, so for FY26, what are you expecting is going to happen with the hiring freeze in FY26? Do we expect it's just going to be lifted and then we can move on?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I really don't know.
okay. Hopefully they don't like the hiring freeze too much. Okay. So compared to law clerks in the region, we think our law clerks are also significantly underpaid. For example, lower paid Maryland judicial law clerks are paid a salary of $63,000 if not barred and $70,000 if barred, whereas the commission's law clerk is currently paid $58,000. Judicial law clerks in DC courts earn on average $89,000 per year. Do you support an increase for law clerk salaries?
Sure, I don't have a problem with that as long as we can handle that in our budget. I believe most of the time our law clerks may be coming right out of school, so they're having no salaries, but I don't have a problem with that.
Will there be adequate budget for the commission's Human Rights Awards ceremony scheduled for December 4th?
Yeah, I've had a discussion with the chair about that. In this budget climate, it's something I've looked at, we've discussed. I've at least brought up the subject of maybe having to do that virtually. If we can get the space, we can use some of the district space. I think I need to look at what the ask is, whether it's private property. I think Georgetown had offered us some space, so it's something that I'm taking a look at. But we're not looking at doing that until December, and I just don't know what I don't know right now.
Okay. When will the previously identified 4 new candidates for the commission be sent to the council?
You know, I am not involved in that process. I have been asked about it before, but that's typically between the chair and the mayor's office.
Have you heard anything about the 5 remaining seats?
I have not.
Have you allocated funds to the commission's archival project?
That is correct. Yeah.
Will they still have the 2 interns?
I don't think that those were interns. Those were contractors, I believe. Are you talking about the summer interns?
Can you elaborate a little bit about the interns you're referring to?
Yeah, the commission was told the archives project would have 2 OHR interns assigned to it, but now they're being told it's not.
Oh, yes,
available.
absolutely. So we do have 2 fellows at the office, year-round fellows, and we've offered to have them assist with the archiving project. That's correct.
So, okay, so that's still a good offer?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And can you provide an update on the case management project?
Yes, we kicked off at the beginning of May. I think it's going very well. We have a project manager. They've met with the vendor to go over what those processes are. I think that at some point early on, they were having meetings almost every day, but they're working through their workflows. They're working with LGC, the commission, all the units of the office, even the CCE team.
You testified that there's a $300,000, there's $3,000 allocated to the case management system. $300? 300,000. Is that not what I said? Oh, okay. Okay. Start over. You testified that there's $300,000 allocated to the case management system. In the common budget questions for contracts, only $245,000 seems to be set aside for case management. Did the system come in as more than expected?
So the specific portion that is contractual is what you see, the 145, I think it was 245,000. And the remaining is payment of membership dues and IT hardware maintenance. So it's a total of $400,000. Again, $245,000 just in contractual.
How much is the membership and how much is the IT?
The membership dues are $888,400. IT hardware maintenance is $66,000.
Can you say the number for the membership dues again, please? I must have written that down wrong.
Sure,
Because
no
it's more,
problem.
I wrote down more than the total, so
Okay. 88,400.
that's better than what I wrote down. Okay. Um, are any federal grants currently frozen or lapsed?
No.
What is the purpose of the Octo IT assessment contract?
That assessment is budgeted under contractual services for approximately $15,000. Was established by Octo during the formulation to budget for projected Octo fixed costs for FY '26. New agencies were added to Octo's list effective FY '26 due to the increase in cost due to both increased consumption and rising service delivery costs. Funds were previously transferred centrally.
Okay, so it's kind of like the DGS fees you pay when you
Yes.
operate a government building. Okay. There's a KYR outreach contract for $74,000. What's that for exactly?
It's not really a contract. KYR is Know Your Rights. I'm pretty sure everybody knows about the Know Your Rights cards. So just to give you an estimate, we participated in 49 community events and meetings to share information on language access, distribute Know Your Rights cards and I Speak cards. 4,975 were multilingual I Speak cards were distributed at LEP and NEP individuals. As of today, the Language Access Program has conducted 10 Know Your Rights trainings that include 6 trainings in person.
Thank you. And what is the anti-bullying activities contract for? I mean, who's running it and what does it do?
OHR contracts with Child Trends to provide series of anti-bullying activities in schools located within the District of Columbia. This includes DCPS, charter schools. Ernest, our person that handles that, is not here today, but I can get back in touch with you if you have any specific questions because he monitors and oversees that program.
Is this the same one we were talking about earlier that is training school staff?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So there's, so that's for the contract, and then the 13,000 from earlier, is that's other program costs to the agency?
Correct.
Okay, so like materials or
Personnel costs. It was
that's
also personnel costs. So it's also, no, just increases to personnel costs. So
Okay.
like fringe and
Oh, right,
like a
right,
step
right.
increase, things like that.
Okay, got it. Okay. Thank you. Oh, could you say again, it was kind of muffled, the name of the contractor?
Child
Child
Trends.
trend.
Child Trends?
Yes.
Thank you.
And just to give you a little bit more specifics, in FY '24, Youth Bullying Prevention Program participated in 45 events. In 2023, it was 34. So far this year, we have participated in 16 events.
Great. Are those events, do they tend to be like each one for a particular school, or is it people coming to the training from different schools?
The ones that I have been to have been specific to that school.
Okay, so the team goes out there.
Yes.
Okay. So that would mean, seems like they went to 45 schools, or unless they repeated a school. And then the next year, 16 so far. They've been at 16 schools so far.
That's the way I'm counting it, yes.
Okay. Okay. The mayor funded the Second Chance Amendment Act in her Budget Support Act. It's one-time funding for $296,000 for the OHR component. Is that correct?
That is correct.
The legislation is subject to appropriations. Wondering why the mayor didn't remove the subject to appropriations clause in the BSA? Anyone know? Question for Opla? Okay. What would you be able to do with one-time funding?
Well, anytime there's new legislation, you're going to need administrative individuals, you're going to need investigative staff. So that really handles, I mean, that would cover all of our, everything except for operations and CCE. So it's really impacting the enforcement unit. And OGC.
Can you implement the Second Chance Amendment Act without that $296,000?
At this time, I don't see how.
Could you provide an update on the Eviction Record Sealing Authority Amendment Act? How many complaints have you received so far?
We're actively implementing the act. The Record Sealing Act added sealed convictions as a protected basis. To date, we have developed and published an initial written complaint and intake questionnaire for alleged violations of the act, drafted and published external guidance documents. As far as complaints, there are 5, is that correct? 5 complaints now open.
There's a contract for $59,000 from local funds for implementation of eviction sealing. What do you plan to do with that?
Most of that money will probably be attributed to the enforcement and the legal units.
Do you have to do with your contract because you can't hire the people you need right now? How does that work?
Yeah, if those funds were available, because everything right now, as far specifically for the enforcement unit,
Okay.
is frozen.
Yeah, makes sense. So OHR provides language access compliance training for DC agencies and others. We heard public testimony today that advocates are seeing a culture of fear, asking for language services. They referred to the current climate. I don't think they were referring to fear from our government, but fear in general. So what's the agency doing to ensure folks feel safe asking for help?
I think our language access coordinator does an excellent job. I've worked with her in working with different agencies, with constituents, looking into matters, doing the pre-investigation work. I think she really does an excellent job with regard to language access.
How do you think the Know Your Rights seminars contribute to people's sense of empowerment?
I think it's great. I think it's handy. The information that you know, if nothing else, if individuals don't know their rights, they don't know how to avail themselves or to seek redress when they may think that they have been discriminated against.
During the performance oversight hearing, we heard testimony from the community that the domestic workers' rights section of the website had technical problems. Has that been resolved?
Yes, the AD did an excellent job of working with I believe it's the NDWA. We addressed, I think one of the things that I really picked up was not so much the translation, but things being in plain language. So he's worked with those constituents. I think he's done an excellent job.
Can you give us an update on the source of income testing study?
We've received the testing contractor source of income testing data. We're evaluating the findings and considering whether OHR, if we're going to conduct any investigations or maybe refer any of those out to any other governmental agencies.
Okay. Is the report going to be publicly released?
It's a testing. So actually, I don't even know if we can release that information.
Okay. With respect to the Fairness and Human Rights Amendment Act, what procedure at the agency could be implemented without additional funding?
please.
Hi, Chair Nadeau, I can take that one. So really, the only provision of the act that doesn't implicate OHR and require funding for the agency would be the increase in the statute of limitations from 1 year to 2 years. But because that change is baked into Section 316, it might require some further amendments to the law to make sure that only that portion is implemented without funding for OHR.
Thank you. This one. Okay, so we're having trouble finding the $300,000 you just mentioned is allocated to the case management system. Can you tell us where that would be in the budget?
So the $300,000 is the one-time funding that has then been renewed for FY26. That is the 88,400.
Okay.
Is the subscription cost, 66,000 under IT hardware maintenance, and the 145,600 for the contractor. And then there's an additional $1,000 that has been, I believe, continued on apart from that 300,000. That's also under contractual services.
Okay,
And that last part was 100,000.
100,000. Okay. Okay. That concludes my questions for you all today, and it concludes our budget oversight hearing. If you've not yet submitted written testimony, please do by submitting it on the council's hearing management system. The record for this hearing will close at 5:30 p.m. on June 24th, 2025. I just want to take a moment to remind everyone the Committee on Public Works and Operations will be holding more budget oversight hearings this week. Please check our website, dccouncil.gov, to sign up. The time is now 2:11 p.m. and the hearing is adjourned. Thank you very much.